Howdy everyone, y'all know it is me, Voltage, and it's time for Link versus Ridley who would in Smash Bracket 2022. Let's do this. Link versus Ridley, round 2.
Legend of Zelda and Ridley from Metroid. I'm Ink and this is Smash Bracket, the show where we put every character from Super Smash Bros. Into a
Let's just go back to the right area this time.
construction. This is the legend of Link, the hero of Hyrule. Now, Link has had many different legends and stories told about him over the years. They've spread millennia and have crossed over a dozen reincarnations, making Link almost more of a title than any singular character. That said, for the purposes of Smash Bracket, we're going to be combining each version of Link into one singular combatant, as each version is also connected through the same spirit of the hero. And the first legend of this hero spirit goes all the way back to before the creation of the world itself. 3 golden goddesses gathered together and decided to create life as we know it, in a collaborative effort to organize the natural chaos of the universe. After their labors had concluded, they departed for the heavens, but not before leaving their new creations with something to remember them
The
by.
Triforce.
The goddesses created a golden triangle called the Triforce. It was comprised of 3 pieces, with each section
Wisdom,
representing a different
courage,
aspect
and
of the
power.
goddesses. This Triforce was said to grant unfathomable power to anybody who could obtain even a single piece of it, and if somebody gathered all 3 pieces, they'd be able to have the goddesses grant them a wish. You know, all that godlike wisdom, and yet they still somehow didn't see how giving a developing nation prone to war an all-powerful artifact might lead to some less than desirable results.
Yeah.
Naturally, a war did break out. The Demon King, Demise, sought to use the Triforce to bolster his own power, whereas the goddess Hylia wanted to take that Triforce and protect it for the people of Hyrule. She was able to fend off the Demon King, but only by sacrificing her own life and divine power. She sent her followers to a floating island called Skyloft and split her remaining life force into 2 conduits. The legendary blade, which became known as the Master Sword, and a mortal reincarnation of herself named Zelda. And so, together, the people of Skyloft lived in peace and harmony. But when the Demon King threatened his return and Zelda was in danger, it was clear that the world needed a hero to stand up against
Link.
the evil. And this came in the form of Link, Zelda's best friend since childhood. He'd been training as a knight on the island, learning swordplay and aerial-based combat on his trusty riding bird called a Loftwing. To save his best friend, Link took up the sword of the goddess and took his Loftwing, and then took a leap of faith, falling to the surface below to face the unknown and save Zelda. Now, while he started from simple beginnings, Link didn't need to endure this adventure alone. The sword he wields contains a spirit named Fi, who helps provide Link with information about where he is and what enemies he's facing. And this sort of companionship's been a constant for Link across his many
Link's
different
companion
journeys
is
over the world.
Navi.
Whether that be the spirit of a sword, a
Chi-Chi.
noble steed, or companion fairies,
Jesus
Link
Christ.
is never truly alone. And across his journeys to save Zelda,
Why do you have
Link's
this-
acquired several different items and abilities that
I
he was
know.
able to use to help him along his way, allowing him to eventually track down the Demon King himself and use his blade to seal him away once and for all. But as he struck the finishing blow on Demise, the Demon King left Link with a curse, swearing that his hatred would follow Link and Zelda in a never-ending cycle of reincarnation, always finding
Ganondorf.
whatever form the two would take and spreading chaos across the land. And this curse really set the stage for the millennia that followed. Each time Link and Zelda were reborn, a form of Demise's reincarnated hatred was right.
Ganondorf, Ganon.
This hatred has taken several forms over the years, with each reincarnation finding new ways to seek out the Triforce once more and destroy Link once and for all. But luckily for our hero, Demise wasn't the only one evolving here. Link has used a variety of blades over the years, such as the mighty Big Goron sword or the Four sword, which can create duplicates
Yeah,
of
he's
Link,
got about
provided that he's
100
used on
swords.
incredibly conveniently placed tiles. But even after dozens of reincarnations, Link's blade of choice has always been the great blade of evil's bane, the Master Sword. This sword was already powerful enough to pierce Ganon, destroy evil, and take on giant monsters. But in some stories, Link was able to take this power even further. By working with rare ore, masters of smithing, and fairies, Link was able to create the Golden Sword, the truest form of the Master Sword that boasts over 4 times the power of the original blade. That said, even the best weapon is nothing without the person wielding it, and Link has an impressive amount of experience under his belt.
Yeah.
Not only has he gained experience from adventuring through the land on his own, but many versions of Link also have formal training as a knight, a bodyguard, and he's even learned the combat sport of sumo. In Twilight Princess, Link's even received sword training from himself in a past life, truly allowing his experience to carry over from one generation
That
to
is
the
stupid.
next. And while he can use a plethora of weapons like spears, axes, or skeleton arms, Link has always had the most experience with his sword, excelling in
And skeleton.
blade combat, blade-to-hand combat, or even blade versus invisible bongo-playing Shadow Beast combat. Just like any well-rounded fighter, Link doesn't just focus on his offense, but he also rounds
What
out
is this
his
character's
defense by carrying
gaze?
a shield with him wherever he goes.
The Hylian
He's
shield
used several different shields over the years, from
is
wooden
his most popular
handcrafted
one.
models to the
Completely
Mirror
indestructible
Shield,
and
which is specifically
Sword.
designed to
Why is it
reflect
indestructible?
attacks.
Why?
But the shield that he takes
That
with
makes
him
no
most
goddamn
often
bit dick of
is
sense.
the Hylian shield. And this thing can take some serious abuse, withstanding lasers, explosions, and massive attacks from gargantuan enemies.
Like, what is that
While this
shield
is
made out
an
of?
defensive option, Link can really make just about anything work. He's skilled enough defensively to be able to deflect deadly energy blasts with nothing but a pot lid. This parry ability can stop charging beasts in their tracks, and with projectiles it plays the old Uno reverse card, returning them to sender. Link isn't just a threat at close range though. He's an extraordinarily gifted archer and is capable of aiming accurately with 5 arrows at once. These arrows can range anywhere from your run-of-the-mill standard arrow to shots imbued with the elements themselves, like fire,
Well, this
ice,
does not sound like fun for Ridley again.
This fire is hot enough to thaw an entire frozen island, while that ice that I mentioned has been able to instantly totally freeze an erupting volcano. And if that wasn't flashy enough for you, Link can also shoot bomb arrows, capable of delivering deadly explosions from afar. But his most deadly
I've never played a
arrows
Zelda game
come
before in
the form of
history.
silver, light, and ancient arrows,
Well,
which
technically
can
I
all
have played
instantly
one,
obliterate basically any
but for
enemy
about
with a
5
single
minutes
touch.
before I
Link's
decided
magic
not to play
doesn't
anymore because I
just
didn't like
enemy.
it.
He can also cast spells given to him by the goddesses, shoot elemental
They're
magic
not my
from
kind of style
staffs,
game.
conjure pillars of sand from the sand rod, and in Hyrule Warriors, he can even use that same rod to summon a freaking spirit train to slam into his enemies. And whoever said that the hero train's gonna come in handy. This magic also manifests itself in several different potions that Link can consume to boost his offensive and defensive capabilities. And he carries several magic fairies with him who can revive him if he should ever fall in combat. While it's not necessarily a part of the character that's talked about super often, magic really has always been integral to Link's combat abilities since the very start.
That giant sword!
Some of the flashiest attacks and giving him magical armor that makes him invincible to everything in his game, provided that he doesn't run out of magic. Which is never really a concern for him, considering that after drinking a glass of Chateau Romani, Link is granted infinite magic for 72 hours. And in that same game where he bought the magical milk, Link's also gained access to mystical masks, capable of transforming whoever wears them. This can turn Link into a powerful rock-like Goron, a graceful Zora, or a wooden Deku shrub, which comes with the ability to shoot bubbles, but also a massive weakness to fire, which, gonna be honest, that last one kind of sounds like a bit of a downgrade if you ask me. But if Link really wants to show off his masks, he can grow to gargantuan sizes with the giant mask, or channel the embodiment of chaos itself with the fierce deity mask. This thing not only gives Link some sweet face paint, but also makes him big enough and strong enough to cleave this massive asteroid-sized moon in half. And speaking of bringing forth powerful spirits, Link is also able to call upon the help of 4 ancient champions of Hyrule to help him through combat, either by launching him into the air, saving him from a deadly blow, summoning lightning, or bringing him back from the dead. Now, I really don't want this video to just turn into a Wikipedia list of all of Link's crazy items. That doesn't make for good content, but trust me when I say that there are a ton and we're just scratching the surface here. But what's just as impressive as his arsenal is his problem-solving ability. Link is a master of puzzles and is able to use his intelligence on the fly, devising smart ways to take out colossal bosses that would otherwise be impossible to hurt. Link is incredibly smart and resourceful, always finding a way to create his own advantages in the middle of a battle, whether that be through sheer ingenuity or unorthodox weaponry. Foes might not be too surprised to see a swordsman with a shield and a bow, but if that same swordsman pulls out an ocarina to change the weather, or a magical baton that can use an invisible choir to possess a statue, his enemies are probably going to start having some questions.
Yeah.
Besides all this, Link doesn't even need his wide arsenal to be a threat. He's fast enough to keep pace with Thunderblight Ganon, moving hundreds of miles per hour, and he's also able to keep pace with the movement of an arrow, which can be a pretty big range of speeds that I'm going to throw up on screen now. Really impressive, and only made all the more impressive when Link is able to use his speed to slow his perception of combat mid-battle with Flurry Rush. But if somehow his enemies are still too fast for him, Link could always just freeze them in time with the Sheikah Slate or his Phantom Spheres. Look, Link has been in so many different games and has had so many different abilities.
I think bringing all this stuff in here is kind of unfair because there's Toon Link and plus Young Link.
When it boils down to it, Link isn't about his arsenals or abilities or stats. At the end of the day, the story of The Legend of Zelda, and really the story of Link, is the embodiment of hope in the land of Hyrule. He's a symbol of courage that no matter
Will the hope die today?
no
Or will it keep going on after it slays a dragon?
This courage isn't a lack of fear. In fact, many versions of Link explicitly get scared pretty often. But true courage, the kind of courage that Link really embodies, is the ability to look certain demise dead in the eyes and choose to fight to the end. and it's that exact trait that has made Link truly legendary. Now let's see how he stacks up against his opponent for today, Ridley.
Ridley's gonna be a main threat,
When
but
you do what you love,
he
you'll
won
never
last
have to
time.
work a day in your life. That could be something as simple as talking about Nintendo characters on YouTube, but in the case of today's fighter, it could also be a ruthless space pirate hell-bent on causing destruction, breaking up families, and stealing lots and lots of cool tech. Enter
Yes.
the Space Pirates, a group of galactic terrorists who plunder, raid, and destroy any planet they set their eyes on, enslaving the local inhabitants to do their bidding and declaring the stolen land as their own territory. These pirates have caused some of the most devastating events in galactic history, but they wouldn't be anywhere near the threat that they truly are without Ridley. Ridley's what happens if you take the most horrifying, terrible, evil thing you could possibly think of and multiply it by 6.
Yeah.
He stands at 18 feet tall and thrives off of pure sadism and a thirst
He
for
is
blood
so
and
much bigger than the
destruction.
characters
He
in
doesn't want to
Smash.
just break someone's bones, but their spirit as well. His idea of a fun weekend is destroying an entire village, killing the inhabitants, and then tormenting a young girl by murdering her mother in front of her, only to quip about eating her to heal his wounds. Which really came back to bite him when that girl went on to become the most capable bounty hunter in the galaxy. But Ridley wasn't too concerned about that. He believes himself to be part of superior, elite species, with all others far beneath him, and he believes that all other races are only good for being exterminated and nothing more. And the only thing that seems to match this sort of racist sadism is his intelligence. He didn't just get his position as captain of the Space Pirates for his good looks, but he's also shown himself to be a masterful commander and battle strategist, leading and orchestrating many successful missions and raids. But
Yeah, he is
apart from
smart,
the pirate
surprisingly.
squadron, Ridley is really something of an army in his own right. His mind is always focused on getting his target to as weak of a position as possible before brutally murdering them. For example, that girl that he taunted grew up to become the deadly Samus Aran. And when fighting her, Ridley created his own advantages in battle by trapping her in air ducts as a morph ball to restrict her movement. And when she still proved to be able to match his maneuverability, he removed speed from the equation altogether by launching them both down a generator shaft, putting them both into free fall and ensuring that even if Samus was able to kill him, she wouldn't be able to make it out alive herself. This kind of ruthless intelligence is what earned Ridley the nickname the Cunning God of Death.
Yes.
Which, knowing Ridley's opinion of himself, very much sounds like a nickname he would have given himself. And this opinion of himself is so high that he's built statues and robots in his own image, just to marvel at and protect his ship in his absence if he's ever gone. And when Samus has been able to best him in battle, time and time again, Ridley decided that of all people, he was worthy of the Space Pirates' signature research and development process. Rub some Phazon on it. Which is something that we should actually talk about real fast. In the Metroid universe, Phazon is a highly radioactive substance, usually existing in the form of ore, but it can also be found in liquid when highly concentrated. Its radioactivity can't be overstated. Organisms who are exposed to it usually die in seconds. To understand how absurd that is, know that even the most intense radioactive poisoning events in our world history still took days to kill the people exposed to them. Despite its deadly properties, Phazon is still a highly sought-after compound, because this radiation also produces an unrivaled source of power. Nothing in the Metroid universe even comes close to it in terms of raw power output, so many people seek to use it as weapons or energy. And in Ridley's case, he decided to have his whole body infused with Phazon, and then fused himself with cybernetics, being reborn as the cyborg Omega Ridley. In this form, Ridley was covered by a hardened version of Phazon called Phazite, which is one of the strongest materials in the entire universe. Beings coated in it are effectively invincible to all known conventional means of attack. Omega Ridley can also launch attacks composed of pure Phazon energy. Now, it should be noted that while Phazon in its natural state is radioactive, neither Phazon energy nor Phazite it's hardened for exhibit these same radioactive properties, as Samus was able to measure in Metroid Prime 3. But even if these Phazon-fueled attacks don't contain deadly radiation, Omega Ridley is still incredibly deserving of fear. As I said, he's essentially invincible to all means of attack, even being able to completely no-sell everything in Samus's arsenal, including her Volt Driver. I don't like just throwing numbers up here, so I asked my research team to help me visualize this, and they told me that that's enough energy to instantly cook over 3 million pounds of chicken all at once, condensed into the size of your fingernail. So yeah, eat your heart out, Matt Pat. But anything south of this outrageous power won't even get a scratch on his Phazite body, no matter how many times he hits.
Eat your heart out, Matt
And
Pat.
Ridley's been able to put out some serious power himself as well, like when he was able to casually explode an entire mountainside. Ridley isn't some big, slow brute either. While traveling, he's able to keep speed fast enough to match Samus's ship as it enters orbit. And in combat, he's able to reach speeds of well over 1,000 miles per hour, while still being able to maneuver in tight quarters. And with his extreme speeds, Ridley can make use of an array of deadly combat abilities. Whether that's shooting missiles, blasting beams that phase on energy, breathing
missile
fire,
launcher, wait,
or
what?
just skewering his targets with his massive tail and
He's a
claws.
dragon. How the hell does he use
Seems
missile
like
launchers?
No matter how many times he's put down, Ridley just refuses to stay defeated. When he's bested, he either builds himself new body parts, dips himself in poison, or eats innocent villagers to heal himself up. And Ridley's vicious love for vitriol keeps him coming back time and time again to terrorize any planet unfortunate enough to fall into the attention of the space pirates. With that said, it's time for our fight. If you want to help keep our series going, please consider backing us up on Patreon or YouTube memberships. We've got works in progress, concept art, and early access to music for our supporters there. And even just a few dollars a month really helps us out.
Rosalina versus
Episode, Ken versus Terry, we've decided to sell a limited edition Please Wubba Wubba Responsibly shirt. I think only a few people are going to totally get this reference, but if you're interested and that speaks to you, it's going to be
I do not get the reference.
Site, and the link is in the description below. But for now, let's get into our fight and find out who will advance on to the next round of the Smash bracket.
Wubba versus Rosalina, I'm looking forward to that most definitely. I'm liking that one by a mile. I want to see it on big time. But now, who's going to win this again? Well, who's going to win round 2? Will it be Ridley or will it be Link? Bunny traps in the ice machine. Need the god is hiding a Bluster Master. His Lawfwing is trapped in the fortress, okay. Will he come back from this alive is my question. Last time we got him, but will he do it again? His horse won't live, I know for a fact. It is so gonna die. Yeah, called it. His horse is completely fucking dead. Poor horsey. His Lawfwing is trapped. You know something's out there now. But even now we just impressive shield defense. Your foe is Ridley. No. Don't know that weapon at all. There's a train running over his face. No! Alright then. A chain chomp? Excuse me? No way is he done.
And show this creature the courage that makes you my hero.
That's another win for Link.
And there you go. This battle wasn't nearly as clear-cut as you might initially think.
No, I want to see that. Go back a second.
There you go. This battle...
Link will cut Ridley into many little pieces and somehow make them explode. Link will use status, then an ice weapon, then an electric weapon, then ice weapon again, then electric weapon again, and then ice weapon again, then electric weapon. And this goes on for several hours. Breath of the Wild Link is a cheese monster who has some bullshit tactics for almost anything. I think Ridley will gain the upper hand, but right when he goes for the finish blow, Link will notice something that he didn't think about before and figure out how to turn the tables and defeat him.
Isn't nearly as clear-cut as you might initially think. While it is true that Link has some serious offensive power and a plethora of different delivery options for that power, Ridley is just so tanky with his phase-eye armor that Link couldn't even leave a dent on him. He could theoretically find weak points in the armor and attack Ridley there, but that just adds one more obstacle for him to worry about. Ridley, on the other hand, was hitting with less than 1% of 1% of what Link can endure. And if Link got the chance to activate his magic armor and down a Chateau Romani, Ridley wouldn't be strong enough to hit past Link's durability, and he would need to wait out an entire 72 hours while surviving for the magic to wear off. So here we have two fighters who basically can't hurt each other at all, no matter how much they wail on each other. Meaning that the deciding factor in this is unlikely to ever really be about attack power or durability.
Intelligent.
Speed also wasn't an incredibly meaningful factor. Ridley did have the advantage in usable combat speed, and he could operate at nearly 1.5 times the speed of sound.
It's intelligence this time.
When Link activates Flurry Rush to enhance his combat speed, things really started to even out. All the more so if he stopped Ridley in time entirely. So what this fight ended up coming down to is seeing which fighter could come out on top against an otherwise unbeatable enemy using strategy and utility, which is what Link is all about.
Yep.
While both fighters were strategic enough to shut down some of their opponent's best strategies, Link just had way more options at his disposal to deal with Ridley than Ridley had to deal with Link. One of the most reliable ways that Link would be able to get past Ridley's defenses was to transform him into something more manageable, whether that be through an unorthodox use of his masks or a more standard transmutation option like the Spell or Magic Powder. Transforming Ridley before killing him would also take care of one of Ridley's most deadly attacks. When Samus destroyed him in Metroid Prime 3, his body exploded with a deadly phazon radiation that would have immediately killed Link. But since this was the only instance of Ridley's phazon being radioactive, and Link's main win condition was to change Ridley into something else entirely, phazon ended up not being a huge factor in determining the winner. Especially when you consider that even if the phazon killed the fairies that Link carries on him, he would still be able to come back from death with Mipha's grace. At the end of the day, Ridley is just the exact kind of enemy that Link excels at fighting. And while Ridley has dealt with adventurers with deadly arsenals before, Link's array of items and abilities is just so much wider and more predictable than anything in Ridley's universe. Link is the winner and will be moving on.
Congratulations, Link.
Next time on the Smash Bracket.
Who's coming? Little. Wait, this is Incineroar versus. I don't remember who it was versus. Incineroar versus. I just. Wolf. That fight, I think I already knew who was gonna win that one. Wolf should win that one. Okay, coming out. That fight should easily go to Wolf, I would think, because like Wolf is way faster. Like if Wolf and Fox and Falco, those three are really fast in the R-Wings, and well, Incineroar, he's just a regular Pokemon, and he doesn't have any OP weapons like this besides move that he has. While Wolf has lasers, blasters, and all sorts of shit like that, probably. This should not be a match at all. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't tell you like, subscribe if you're new. See ya!